Hi everyone, Dr. Sonya Jensen from Divine Elements. I'm sitting with my really good friend Birkor today. And so last week we talked a little bit about co-creating for women. Dr. Natalie and I talked about how important it is for women to feel connected and in community. And one of the things that came up during that discussion was talking with moms and creating community with moms, right? So we can support each other. So the feedback that we got was for us to talk about Momma Overwhelm, because we all deal with it and we're not alone. And the intention behind this discussion today in this conversation is to really show you that we're not alone, right? Or you're not alone. And so we're going to talk about some real things, and if you have any comments or questions, anything you want to discuss, feel free to leave comments below the video. So Birka and I have a very unique relationship, I would say.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. So she was my yoga teacher. She was my doula with my firstborn. And so like a big part of my support system when I was having my first child, and my Kundalini yoga teacher as well when I did my training, and my office manager, my friend, so many different roles, right?
Yeah.
And then we became pregnant together with our second. So that, I think, connected us even more, because we could call each other first thing in the morning after having a really crappy sleep,
Yeah.
and talk about how many hours we slept or didn't sleep, what we ate or didn't eat, you know, how much nursing we had to do. So, you know, all those typical things we go through physically, but also emotionally, we were able to kind of lean on each other when things were up and down. So today we're going to talk a bit about that, and I wanted to ask Birkor from her experience, because she's worked with a lot of women, especially pregnant women, and being a mom herself, how, you know, some of the things that you see women go through, and maybe what the triggers are, and where that overwhelm starts.
I like that it's about community, because I've been thinking a lot lately about how kind of, I don't want to say wrong, but how challenging we've made things for moms in our society. Because mostly I think, at least for me personally, a big trigger was just like you're by yourself a good chunk of the time. And I don't think that's natural or like healthy when you're with a child. And so because it's overwhelming. It's like just being a mom and the responsibility of it and everything that goes along with it is a real shock to the system in some ways. And I think that there's so many little details that come into that, but it's really just the, like, there's a human who's relying on me for everything, and that is just very overwhelming. And I don't think it's natural for a woman to, like, most of the time moms, it's just they're on their own in their house dealing with that all the time, and then having these thoughts and feelings that if they can't do that without feeling anxious and stressed and depressed and all of then there must be something wrong with them.
Especially with all the information that's out there too, because there's lots of mom blogs, which are great and they can be really supportive, but then we can also start comparing ourselves to what somebody else is going through, and each child is so different. Each mom, each parent is so different, and the minute we start doing that, I know for myself, my overwhelm starts when I'm putting too much pressure on myself.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I'm judging myself for not being a certain way or doing things wrong, right? So that, you know, I think there's this want for there to be community, and I think those groups start that, but then the underlying thing,
there's like judgment.
There's judgment, and then that doesn't feel supportive for the mother either.
I think there's two. I think in the last, like, I don't know how, let's say, like, when did that movie What Babies Want come out? Like, let's say in the last generation, in the last like 15-20 years, there was a movie that came out called What Babies Want, and there's been a lot of focus and a lot of research and understanding going into how important what happens in the womb and then what happens in those first few years of a child's life. There's been a lot of understanding of how important that is, because previous generations, it just, it wasn't really thought about at all.
You just did it.
You just did it. But then there's this like new consciousness and new understanding of how important that time is, which is great. It's good to have that information, but there's in all of this information that gets given to women, there's very rarely is there like a tool
or a solution
or a solution for how to be so on all the time. Because you can't, once you know that every thought that you have, everything that you do, every interaction that you have, every environment that you're in has an impact on the child, that's overwhelming. Because then suddenly we get like, we're like afraid of like wrecking the child. So there's like, we want to do it all right.
Yeah, perfect.
And then if I eat the right thing and if I do this, and then you get the like healthiest, happiest child. And it's all like, that's it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's like sometimes too much information without like real grounded, solid, practical tools for women. It doesn't help. You're better off to be ignorant. Actually.
Yeah, it's true.
You'll probably do a better job if you're ignorant of all of these things.
Yeah, because then you're not putting that pressure on yourself to be perfect.
To be perfect and do it right.
And you know, talking about the generations before us, there was a village, right?
Totally.
There was always a village. And you know, you and I talked about when we had our second, like we're trying to find a home where we could buy like a duplex together. So, you know, we could look over the fence and say, hey, what did you make tonight? Because I don't feel like cooking. Or can you watch the kids for a few minutes because I need to run somewhere? Nowadays, we don't have that support like we did before. So the village is gone, and so we don't get that security or that safety in our own space when we're alone with our child. So that makes it really tricky.
It does. It definitely, there's like isolation. And then add to that just, you know, not sleeping. And for sure for me, a trigger of overwhelm is definitely like, I'm always better off if I've had some sleep. And unfortunately, that's not been the story of my life as a mother. It's a lot of the time has been not having slept very well. And so you're just not at your best from the start. And then it becomes really challenging to try and make the right decisions or do things.
And when, as we talked about, you know, comparing to other moms, and you see other moms running around doing stuff outside, right? And if you're sitting at home tired and not wanting to do anything, and then you feel, oh no, I'm not giving the child all the stimulation that they need, or do I need to put them in classes? Or, you know, like you were saying, like our generation has changed so much in the way we parent because we want to do it right, because we know too much now. And in doing that, we start creating that extra pressure, which doesn't help.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that even the moms who are out looking like they're doing fine, they're not. Like, I don't know, I would say 100% of women.
Yes, I agree.
Especially 100% of moms are, if not, you know, maybe not all the time, but spend a good chunk of their time overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, you know, having some kind of doubt or feelings of isolation, like 100%. There's not a single mom that is not having those days, for sure. And I think it's tricky because I do, you know, when I work with pregnant women, because now I'm working at a midwives clinic, I see pregnant women all the time. You want to like, you don't want to like scare them, but we somehow need to find a way to talk about the reality of what being a mom is like without freaking people out. And it's so challenging because especially when you're pregnant for the first time, you really are in such a fantasy of what it's going to be like. And I don't know how we kind of pop that bubble. Because it's not serving anybody.
Well, I think conversations like this, because it's the same thing for me too in my practice. When I see pregnant women, and my last visit's usually all about, okay, you know, there's an adjustment period that's going to come after the birth. And I'll talk, you know, even with the body, like physiologically, your hormones are changing, you're not going to be sleeping, there's these things that we need to talk about now. And you kind of see this glazed look over their eyes. But then they come in for their 6-week postpartum, and they're like, this is what you were talking about, right?
I think that's true. I think it's kind of about like setting the stage prior to, so that they know that there's resources when they hit into it. Because because I think having a child for the first time is really like, it's an initiation into a new thing.
Yeah.
You're no longer just a woman. There's a whole other aspect of your being that's opened up. And until you actually go through it, you really can't, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You
Even
just
if
can't.
you see someone close to you going through it.
it.
You know, I had this conversation with my sister too, and she's like, you didn't tell me certain things. I'm like, no, I did. And I was going through it, but it isn't. But your reality is so different when you're not pregnant or you don't have a child already.
For
right?
sure.
So,
and you also, I remember one of my best friends had a baby about a year before I did, and I remember watching some of the challenges that she had, and you know, just really having so much compassion for her, but also at the same time thinking, well, that won't happen to me because I'm going to do X, Y, and Z different.
Right, you're going to do it differently.
Yeah. And I did do things differently, but it doesn't mean that you get away from challenges. You know, there's that saying that like everybody's the perfect parent until they have children.
Yeah.
And then you just do whatever you have to do to survive in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the biggest things that I find is when we're not allowing ourselves to ask for help.
Yeah.
I think that is like the key thing, because, you know, it's like that self-judgment and also wondering, okay, well, if I ask somebody for help, does that mean I'm not doing a good job?
Yeah.
Or are they going to say no?
Yeah.
And, you know, as I'm saying, I was thinking about my sister who didn't sleep last night and called this morning about my niece not sleeping because she's sick, and, you know, she's obviously needing help, and I couldn't go out there today, and I felt for her because I know what that feels like to be alone and not have slept, and, you know, you have a sick child, and
you're just like alone, feeling tired and exhausted. And
exactly.
So that's the thing, you know, when I teach prenatal yoga, that's one of the things that I really stress as much as I can, is to start looking for ways in your life that you can ask for help, because the thing is that for women our age, we've kind of like grown up in the era of I can do everything by myself because I am a strong, independent woman. And so it's really been written out of the handbook for us to even know how to ask for help, because that is definitely seen as a sign of weakness. And so, you know, when I'm teaching prenatal yoga to women and when I'm talking to women in the clinic, the midwives clinic, I just say to them, like, when you're at the grocery store and you're shopping and they offer to carry out your groceries, even if you can do it by yourself, say yes. And when somebody on the bus offers to let you sit down, and even though you don't need the seat, like, learn to receive the help, because I think part of the challenge also is that we've become so, we have real specific ideals about what help needs to come as, because we have our own idea about how I'm going to raise my child right based on this book that I read and this philosophy and this thing. And so when your sister-in-law or your mother-in-law or your girlfriend comes to offer the help, it's not in the right form, and surely they're going to do something that's going to kind of mess somebody up.
Right, what you've already started.
What you've started.
The routine that you started.
Right, and so then we don't allow for help to come in, and I think that's I think a big challenge that women have is there's help available, but we have a real hard time actually receiving it sometimes. So I've been thinking lately, this thought came into my mind where I was like, because I have to come up with a saver project for this upcoming course that I'm doing, and it's like the thought came to my mind of like, it takes 40 days to change the world. It can only, you know, you only need 40 days to change the world, and that's based on Yogi Bhajan's teachings about that first 40 days after the baby comes, and having, like, really opening up the space to teach women about how important it is to allow for support and receiving support and having people bring food, because it still boggles my mind that pregnant women, you know, you ask them, so do you have like food coming, or well, we'll take care of it ourselves. Like, no,
you're not gonna
you won't.
You'll be stuck on
You'll
the couch,
be exhausted
nursing all day or feeding all day,
and then you're gonna, you know, cram like crackers or like toast crusts in your mouth to try and
just to get by,
and you're gonna be hungrier than you've ever been in your life. And that at that moment, that's like the mother not the individual mother even,
Yeah.
but like the mother needs nurturing.
Yeah.
And so it's like learning to kind of open our space so that we
Yeah.
can receive all of the help that's actually
Yeah.
there to be had.
Yeah.
Because my experience is that people actually really want to help.
Mhm.
So that's not the problem.
Mhm.
It's that we need to learn how to allow that in.
Yeah, and that doesn't end at the 40 days either. It's like, even after recognizing that you are first.
Yeah.
I was reading this article by the psychologist, and he was like, there's such a misunderstanding in parents right now where they believe that the children are first.
Oh
Because
my
it's a
gosh.
total misconception.
Oh my
No, the
gosh.
parents are first.
Yeah.
Because if you take care of yourselves and your relationship, then the other stuff will just happen.
Otherwise, if the children think that they're first,
Yeah.
they feel really, really, really insecure.
Yeah.
Because then it's like they're suddenly like, well, I don't know what the heck is going
Yeah.
on. Right?
If I'm in charge.
If I'm in charge,
Yeah.
then we're really in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's obviously, it's a subconscious thing, but that's where they get
Yeah.
really neurotic
Yeah.
because they have no idea.
Because then in that we teach them when they're older
Mhm.
that
How to-
how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And Nick mentioned this last time when I went to teacher training, or not teacher training, the ladies camp. Like I came back completely different, and because of that, our youngest son Soren, he was completely different.
Yeah.
Because I had it in the summer. I was tired, I was exhausted, and he's a very different child than my first. So you know how we think and fantasize that we're going to get the exact copy the second time and you don't. So it took me leaving and working on myself for things to change in our household.
Yeah.
But there's so much guilt around that, guilt about leaving your home or doing what you need to do for yourself. And I think that also needs to shift in our belief system about ourselves.
Yeah, and having more opportunities and really uplifting things for women to do. Because it's not, I think that so when I came home from ladies camp, my daughter, she put her hands on my face and she pushed I had my hair down, she pushed my hair back and she said, "Oh, there you are, Mama."
I can see her saying that.
Yeah. It was so sweet, just right up in my face. "Oh, there you are." And I thought, there I am. I'm not covered in all the stress and all the the anxiety and the judgments and it just was there I am. Yeah. And I was able to be present with her. And I think more opportunities for women to do stuff like that, because it doesn't quite do the same thing, I don't think, if you go out for drinks with your girlfriends.
No.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
That's definitely helpful to just have fun and do things that are fun, but having more opportunities that offer women tools, like meditation and things like that to help them deal with the stress of life. One of the things that's been very sad to me in the clinic that I work in is that if a woman who's pregnant expresses that she's having stress and anxiety and doesn't deal with that, and she's concerned about the postpartum period because she thinks she may be at risk for postpartum depression, the only option, the only kind of resource that really is available to them is a referral to reproductive mental health, which you have to wait for 4 months to get in.
And now baby's here.
And then baby's there, or just before babies come.
Right.
And then at that point, all you're getting is a psychiatric assessment.
Right.
There's no tools really that are given.
Yeah.
It's very sad to me because most of those women, they don't actually need, they're not depressed or anxious. They just need some kind of a tool to deal with the feelings that are happening. And that's where I just think meditation and some of these kind of tools that can help deal with your own mind are so important.
Because we know, when you're pregnant, your stuff comes up, whether it's your stuff with your own mom or generations before you or self-consciousness about your body and your insecurities. So things are coming up, so we need tools to deal with that, because afterwards there's going to be a whole other set of insecurities and judgments and things coming up that we kind of put on ourselves.
And then at that point, you have a whole other being that you have to interact with and care for. And so a lot of that stuff you don't get time. So it gets stuffed, but then it rears up like an ugly monster.
And then it starts affecting relationships.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's hard for men in our lives to really understand what's going on in those moments when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. Our hormones are changing. We have our self-judgments and our minds coming into the picture. So, this self-care isn't just for the women, it's also for the men. Like we've talked about how
gosh,
they have a twinkle in their eye when they come back from men's camp, and all of a sudden that fades too after a little while.
Yeah.
So it's important for both parties to really take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So then they can be there for each other.
I noticed too with my husband for sure that whenever I need to, he's so encouraging and supportive of me taking time, because he recognizes that if I'm feeling stable and secure and balanced and relaxed, then he doesn't have to manage what's happening with me in the same way. It's like he can just relax a little more and know that it's all kind of covered. And so he's super supportive of me doing those sorts of things for myself.
Yeah, and that comes with conversation, right? Because I think a lot of us women, we expect them to know what we're thinking. And I know I'm guilty of this too, but if we actually tell them that this is what I need, I think that's all they need to know, so they can allow you the space to do that somehow. Again, it's that asking for help thing again. Yeah, and I think what you said before was really important about when you do choose to do something, it needs to be something that uplifts you. So if you are getting together with your girlfriends, like do something that really feeds your soul. And because we can get together and just complain sometimes.
And that's
then we feel even more fired up.
Yeah.
When we leave. But no, get together so you can actually work on your stuff. Get rid of those belief systems and create new ones that are going to serve you.
Yeah, because venting is good. There's a time and a place for that, but it doesn't ultimately. It doesn't go anywhere, and it really doesn't actually help you feel better.
Yeah. So what are some takeaways then, if we were to share that with women? What are some things that they can start like today? Today, I would say, like, if you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, and you are at home on your own with a child, or whatever may be happening, one of the best ways to actually just relax and kind of come back to that reality of is the breath. So connecting to your breath, take a time out for a couple of minutes to just do some deep breathing. I think also there's a point of, like, I know that I get to those points sometimes where I'm like, I know that if I just did this, I would feel better, but there's like these blocks to actually, because I think what it is, you have to feel. You may actually need to cry for 5 minutes, or whatever the case may be. Or so I think as long as kids are safe, go into the bathroom for a couple of minutes and take a couple of deep breaths, maybe have a cry if you need to, scream into a pillow, whatever that needs, drink a glass of water. That's like in the immediate moment. I think connecting to the breath is like the most important. Because the to-do list is going to be there.
Oh yeah, it's never going away.
Yeah, it's just never going away. So I think the more I heard this Osho quote that I really liked, stop focusing on the destination but focus on the direction. And that's with everything in life, right? So even with the kids, like, we're always focused on like the end point or what we have to do all the time, but if we just focus in that moment, because that's all they really need from us, is to be present. And then the more present we are, the less scattered we feel about all the things we have to get done.
If that's the challenge, because I know a lot of people who really have a lot of built up anxiety and stuff, it's actually it's like painful to be in the present moment, because it's very hard. And so if that's happening, you kind of just have to do what you can do to survive, and start looking at some of the tools longer term, which can help you deal with that overwhelm that's happening. And so that's where, I'm obviously biased because I teach Kundalini yoga and meditation, and so that's a tool for me that genuinely feels like it has saved my life. So something like that can help process emotions through the body, move the body, get the breath happening, bring you into a present that's not terrifying. Because there's so many different reasons why that can be really, really challenging to be present. And then especially be present. The thing is your children will always do everything to bring you present.
Yes. That's their goal.
That's their goal. And they're really good at their job.
Like, to the point where my son will grab my face and do this until I'm facing him and really paying attention to what he's doing. Because that's all they want. But for us, that's really
so challenging. Because you want to just chill. But I think what actually is, we want to just disassociate. And
hence comes the social media.
Exactly. So finding ways to process whatever is actually the underlying that's like bringing that anxiety and feeding that anxiety and the challenge in being present in the moment.
Yeah. And my thing would be just really recognize how important you are, because you are the glue of the family, right? So in saying that, take care of yourself, ask for help. Yeah. Even, and I think it's helpful to have, if you have just one person that you feel like you can kind of like be vulnerable with and admit that you're not keeping it together in the way that maybe you would like to be, so that you have like a phone call that you can make if it's really feeling challenging, and to just know that that's okay. Yeah. You know, we play so many roles outside of being a mom, whether it's a business owner, a doctor, a yogi, and all these things. But at the end of the day, we're all in it together. Yeah. Right? Yeah. All we want to do is raise children that are nice. Yeah. That's it.
Nice and happy.
Nice and happy. That's the end goal. All the other stuff it's just details.
Yeah. And there's so much that feels like is blocking that at this point. So it's just kind of making the way back to finding that simple place. Yeah. And then, you know, if there's things that, or places that you need to go, Beer Corps is offering a retreat soon in May, which is going to be really great. It's her and Guru Kiran, so there's going to be a lot of artistic stuff going on. Lots of yoga. And lots of Guru Kiran is an amazing yogi woman, mother, and artist. And so she will be using intentional creativity through the medium of paint, collage, all kinds of different things in order to help kind of move through some of the emotions. And
and that's on Bowen Island. And if you're looking for a real escape, if you want to go to Baja, Mexico, Dr. Nally and I are going to be doing one at the end of June. So, you know, there's options, and you do what you can, but it's just making that decision to do it for yourself. Yeah. You're here. Yeah. So any questions, comments, please leave them below, and we are here to serve you, and we will see you next week. Okay. Thanks.